When I think about air, the element of air as it pertains to astrology, I think about aeroplanes. I think about air balloons floating in the air. I see parachutes. I see birds flying. I see, a special science that has had to go into making that possible, you know? Whether you're looking at it from the point of view of creation, as in like looking at it from a God's perspective, however you would like to understand that, um, in the way that birds were created to fly, to exist in that ecosystem of air, you know, knowing just when to flip their wings, at what speed, at what time, when to accelerate, when to decelerate, there's a knowing, there's a math, there's a calculation that goes into that, you know, from a nature's perspective. And then when you look at it from man-made stuff, such as like an airplane or someone, like a parachute, someone a parachuter or someone who, does parachuting, or just, hot air balloons or whatever, there's a science, there's logic that goes into that. There's calculations, there's math, there's, things that go into that, into an aeroplane, the amount of speed that's required for it to take off, and all of the aerodynamics that then go into place to make sure that it stays flying, that it stays at a certain altitude, and how to decrease the altitude or increase the altitude, playing with the wind, with the air, and all of those things. It's like it's a science. Um, it's mental, isn't it, right? And so when I think about air signs, that's exactly what comes to mind. It's that um, expression, human expression, that has to do with the mental faculties, our thoughts, how we process information, how we communicate, how we distribute information, the math that goes into it, the logic, the reasoning, the rational things of life, that all go into it. So that's why we have Aquarius as an air sign. That's why we have Gemini as an air sign and Libra as an air sign. And these are signs that, of course, all have their own unique individual traits and characteristics that stand out from one another. But as a whole, what they do have in common is that they all rule and they all dominate the domain that has to do with the mind, the mental faculties, communication, the spoken word, expressions of ideas, they rule over that domain. Kind of like in the last audio, I talked about how the water signs rule the domain of emotions and feelings. They are almost unmatched when it comes to that, you know? And it's the same concept, with the air signs. That's their domain, and they're really good at it, and they really dominate that area. And if someone has a lot of air in their chart, they can be very airy, they can be very, very brainy, very intellectual, inventive, very logical, So, yeah, that's what comes to mind when I think about the air element. Its vibration is much, much more higher up in the head space, sort of like the head area. So they don't have a very strong resonance or a very strong vibration um, as it pertains to like lower in their body, like as it pertains to like feelings and emotions or being grounded into their body like an earth sign would, um, or express the same passion and the same fire or the same kind of motivation like fire signs would. Sorry. Theirs is more a mental expression. It's very light. It's very much in the brain. It's very much in the head, you know. So you could be talking to an air person who is just like so serious. That's why sometimes people say that air people are so cold and aloof and they're so emotionally detached, and almost like they just don't have any emotional expressions, you know. Because that's like that doesn't they don't have the same resonance, for example, like the water signs that are so rich and so connected to that emotional, you know, um, um, vibrations of our expression of our existence. But then again, also water signs don't necessarily also have that same mental agility, maybe, or same vibration that the air signs have, you know. That is not to say that like water sign people are not logical or rational or intellectual. They are, don't get me wrong, but that's just not their strongest vibration, you know what I mean? And it's the same also for the air signs, like, you know, emotionally, maybe that's not their strongest vibration. But that's not to say that they're not emotional people. They do have feelings, they do have emotions, but their emotions are just expressed differently. Maybe expressed through communication, through invention of something, you know. Um, hey, let's create this device because it helps to get this kind of emotion out, or let's create this device because it helps communicate better. Let's create this app because it allows uh, this part of the world to communicate with this part of the world. You know, so there is feeling, there is emotions, but it's just expressed differently, you know, because theirs is more in the mental space, theirs is more in the head. Um, so yeah, that's what comes to mind when I think about the air element. And of course, when I start talking about the signs that fall under air signs, of course, I'm gonna break down a little bit more because they all have their own differences. Like Aquarians are very different from Geminis, and Geminis are also much more different from Libras and so forth. And Libras are much more different from Aquariuses as well, because also the way I see it, like, you know, the vibration is very different in an Aquarius person as it is in a Libra person, and also in a Gemini person, also because they are born at different times, different seasons, different times of the year. For example, Geminis are born during the springtime, and Aquarius are born, like, you know, during the winter, if you're like talking about the northern hemisphere. Um, and then you have Libras that are like in the autumn, so it's also like different. And it's the same with the water signs as well. Like, you know, you have your Cancers in the summer, and then you have your Pisces. Um, uh, when was Pisces? I think you have your Pisces a little bit earlier in the year, you know, also in winter, I believe, because they come close to Aquarius. And then you have your Scorpios right towards the end of the year, closer to Christmas. So it's like, you know, you have all those different seasons and periods with where all the signs are, you know, born or residing. But yeah, so when I start going to more in depth with those, I'll break down the air signs as well, a little bit more in detail. But yeah, air signs are also intuitive, I would say, but I think that their intuition is just expressed very differently, and mostly just through the mental faculty, just through communication, um, and just a lot of mental agility. That's just all I see, like just a lot of mental agility. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of like thought processes and the speed at which information is processed. Um, all of those things are traits that, you know, air people would have, and they're brilliant communicators. Some of them make some of the best writers, especially Geminis are really, really, really good writers and really, really good communicators. I think like Gemini is probably one of the best of the three signs, like Libra and Aquarius. I think Gemini is probably the best probably the best communicator of all the signs, generally, because that's just their domain. And then on top of that, they just rule communication, you know. Their vibration is more in the throat area. So yeah, definitely good stuff there also with the air signs. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end this one here. If you guys have any comments about air signs that you guys would like to share, please leave those in the comment section. Also, if you have your own experiences, leave those in the comment section. If there's something that I forgot to mention about air signs, also please put those, in the comment sections, and also let me know which air sign you belong to. That would be so cool to see which air signs you guys belong to. And soon after I'm done with this elemental breakdowns, I'm gonna start going into each zodiac sign, and that should be more exciting because then I have so much more to say about each sign than the elemental stuff, because the elemental stuff are a little bit more vague in general. So yeah, I think that's all I had for the air signs based on what I've studied and my own personal experience. Thank you once again for tuning in. It means so much. I hope you guys liked this, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe and also hit the notification bell so that you know when more stuff is uploaded. All right, ciao.